Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Girl Be Self-ish podcast. I am your podcast host, Chanel McCord. I'm the CEO and clinical director of Oasis Wellness Group. I am an author. I am a speaker. I am a therapist, and I am an all-around mental health advocate. Mental health and wellness is what I do, and it is what I love. And so I'm super excited to be able to be back with you all for another episode of Girl Be Self-ish. Listen, for those of you who have been listening, you know that this podcast was born out of the anthology project, Girl Be Self-ish, learning to embrace your rhythm of self-care. And this inaugural season, I've been meeting with all of the wonderful, phenomenal authors who are a part of the anthology project. And today is no different. I have another one of my wonderful authors on with me today, and we're going to jump in. But before we do, I have one question that I ask y'all every episode. Why have you not gotten the book yet? Listen, y'all, the book is out. It is 21 stories with 21 different women on their journey of self-care and teaching you, giving you tools, understanding, and knowledge about how self-care helped them in their journey. You want to make sure that you get this book, as it will be a tool in your arsenal towards wellness. And so listen, I need you to go to Amazon, get the book. But listen, by the end of this episode, Marsha is going to let you know how you can get a copy of the book from her. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere, because we're going to make sure that we get it in your hands. And so with all of that being said, I'm super excited to have my next author on with me today. And of course, we're going to talk all things self-care. So welcome, Marsha. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Hi, Chanel. Yes, I am excited, humbled and honored to be a part of this anthology.
Yeah, it's good. It's good in so many ways. And we're going to have a chance to talk about some of the nuggets that you dropped in your chapter. But really quickly, give the people a little bit about yourself. Tell them who you are, what you do, all of that good stuff.
Okay, well, my name is Marsha Jerman. I work in several different industries. I'm a business strategist and a transformational coach. Many know me by Marsha Burke, but my name is Marsha Burke Jerman. And as I said, I'm a business strategist and a transformational coach. I have the ability to curate my 20 years of experience. And I've navigated through diverse sectors such as finance, fashion, faith-based, and entertainment. And with all of the different experience, I've been able to become an entrepreneur, and I'm able to help other businesses and other high-level leaders strategize when it comes down to business, their vision, and in some instances, be a transformational coach for some.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And when you talk about all that you do and like your wealth of experience, right? I have to imagine that you staying on top of your self-care and your wellness is huge. It is highly important, in all of the work that you do. And so with that being said, tell the people, what would you say is your definition of self-care?
My definition of self-care is diving into the truth, the rawness um, of who you are, understanding how to navigate through. And I say the definition of raw for me is raw being the reality of who you are and your journey. And sometimes embracing the reality is it's a hard pill to swallow, because
Yes.
it's swallowing the truth of where you are without sugarcoating it, without denying it. Just really just the humility and the vulnerability of
Yeah.
who you are and where you are in life. And A in the raw is for application. Being able to understand that you're in a position to have self-care. You got to have a village around you that you can be truthful with. Sometimes your village is your therapist.
Come on.
Sometimes your village is a close friend, but just a safe place. And
Mm-hmm.
so I believe that that's a huge part of the application, is finding your safe place where you can drop all of the reality that you've then stumbled upon.
Yes.
And then W for the raw is wisdom, being able to apply wisdom and truth from those leaders and those mentors in your space. to apply that wisdom. And sometimes it causes you to have an accountability partner, because we embrace truth when we feel like we need it.
Come on.
But sometimes embracing of truth is, for some of us, it needs to be a little bit more consistent. Some of us
Mm-hmm.
procrastinate on some of the wisdom that we've gotten. And so that to me is what it is. It's about being raw about where you are, and helping yourself to evolve into your true authentic self. For some of us, it's not the easiest thing to do, because
Mm-hmm.
we're so used to being solution oriented for everybody else.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of where I am. When it comes down to self care, I have to learn to be raw in every sense of the word.
Yeah, I love that. I love this idea of, when you look at self-care, looking at the realness of who you are and what's going on in the inside of you. And the key word you said was evolution.
Yes.
Evolution, for you to evolve into the best version of yourself, because I think a lot of people get caught up and they get stuck in, this is as good as it gets, like, this is my life, this is what it is, and this is as good as it gets, not realizing that we really do have the power to create the life that we want and the life that we deserve. But it requires you to be self-aware. It requires you to be real with yourself. Like you said, with the application, it's not just knowing the things, then what do you do with the things, right? Because I come across so many people are knowledgeable, like they know, oh, I know, yeah, I know that, I know I should do that, I know I should eat better, I know I should move my body 30 minutes a day, but knowing is not enough. You
Mhm.
have to apply the steps and apply the principles. And then, even when you talk about having a mentor, having somebody that you invite into your life to be able to speak into your life, to hold you accountable, right? Because, I think about it oftentimes, like, people is just like, I don't need to go to church or whatever. I have my own relationship. The problem with that is you're left to your own devices. So when your thinking is funky, when things are off, you have nobody in your life who's challenging your thought processes. Nobody in your life who's challenging you to do better or to act better or to be better, right? And so that formula, like, literally, for all of you who are listening, Marsha just gave us a formula. She just gave us the raw formula, right? Embracing that reality, the application, and operating in wisdom, right? That is the formula in order for you to get to a place of self-care. And that's so powerful. My question for you, Marsha, is how did you develop that formula? And how did you get to that place where you just like, I got to be raw with myself so that I can evolve and become better?
Um, well, first of all, my husband was sick for about close to 2 years. My husband had been diagnosed with aplastic anemia, and it was navigating through the realization that, one, I had become an official caregiver.
Mm,
Not something that many of us think about, like, oh, what if I was a caregiver one day? But in becoming a caregiver, it was on top of everything that I was also, all of the other weight that was on my shoulders.
mm,
I weathered the weight of a lot of different entities in my life, whether it's being a mother, being a sister, being a wife, first and foremost, the woman of God, walking, in a godly way and
mm,
serving at my local ministry, um, Victory in Christ Christian Center. So then it was like, okay, all of that. And, in my employment, corporately, as well as what I do as a coach, and I manage, I'm a manager of gospel artists. And so
mm,
just working in the entertainment industry and all the different stuff that I do, the weight on my shoulders when my husband fell ill was an additional weight.
mm,
And so I started seeing my executive coach, who was able to help me harness all of what I had going on. And one of the things that she brought out to me was, she says, before I help you strategize and navigate through this season of your life, I want to first deal with the fact that you have crossing guard complex. And I
mm,
was like, what is that? And she
mhm,
said, you have crossing guard complex because when you look at a crossing guard, that crossing guard is in the middle of many different, of an intersection. And the intersection can be two different streets, it can be four different streets. And if it's a circular, it can be more than 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she said, you are a crossing guard. And what that means is that you believe that if you move yourself out of place, if you get out of position, that everything is going to fall apart.
Mm,
That's what, that is for you. You feel
mm.
responsible for guiding and protecting others in whatever space that they're in. And she made the reference of, you're like the Olivia Pope,
Mm,
the ABC
mhm,
series. And she said, hey, she was like, you have crossing guard complex. And now that I've explained to you what it is, I need to help you understand that for this particular season of your life, you are going to need to move out of that posture
yeah,
and
yeah,
choose you. And that wasn't something I was used to doing. And she said to me, she said, Marsha, you're going to have to choose you for you to be able to get to the next level in life that God
mm,
has for you. And I didn't even really know what that looked like. She says, but I'm going to leave this with you. She taped the session that we had. She says, I want you to go back and read it and think about it and pray about it and see what that really means for you. So when I went back to go meet with her, she was like, how does that feel for you? And I was like, man, I've had to really, really delve into some truths about me
come
that I
on.
never really paid attention to. And so she says, okay, so she gave me some more stuff to think about and pray about. And then before I could get back to her, on September 11th of 2024, and you got to get the book. You got to get the book to read my
Come
chapter,
on.
to actually really delve into what that moment was like,
Yeah,
and I tell it in a very picturesque way, to really bring you, the reader, into what I was experiencing. Because sometimes we like go through stuff. It's like having a car accident, right? You get into a car accident and it happens.
mhm.
And then you go back and people are like, what happened to you? I was in a car accident. But people really don't get the depth of what happened in
Yes,
car accident. And
yes.
so I take you through a very picturesque journey of what it felt like to experience September 11, which most people relegate to the
Mhm,
World Trade Center. Well, September 11th in 2024, for me, somebody who was also in person at the September
mhm,
11th, 2001 in New York City. I was there, but I relegate that feeling to what I felt on September 11th, 2024, when I lost my husband.
mm.
And so I say it really quickly. I lost my husband. But when you go and you read the chapter, you will experience what I talk about. You'll actually be able to walk through that journey, what step by step that looks like, um,
Yeah,
and what that moment encompassed. But it was all of that
yeah.
that took me to a place where, man, now the caregiver, which was on top of the weight,
Mhm.
caregiver now didn't exist
Didn't
because he
exist.
was no longer here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it left a huge void in my life.
Mhm.
And it gave me all this time, because not only did the caregiver responsibility go away, but everything else was on pause because the
Yes.
caregiver was no longer there, because he was no longer there.
Yeah.
And this space got bigger and bigger and bigger, because everybody was like, oh no, I can't come to you for this, and we need to give you a break. And no, Marsha, we're going to take a pause here. We're going to put a pin in it because we need to give you space. So then all of a sudden, my entire world,
Just stopped.
it just stopped.
Mhm.
And there was this, it was like a blank hole.
Mhm.
And I just was like, wow, I have just entered into the abyss. Like, it is just this blank hole. And I'm
Mhm.
sitting in my home alone.
Yeah.
And for the first time, everybody had left. The calls after you lose a loved one stop.
Mhm.
Everybody says, we got to give her space. We got to give her time. And I was just alone. And
Mhm.
if I could be honest, I was way past E.
Mhm.
And in being past E, I'm then like, whoa, I'm really going to have to figure out, God, like, talk to me about how do I fill this void?
Come
And
on.
he was like, to fill the void, you did good. You came to me.
Mm-hmm.
I had to forgive God, which is something I didn't know I needed to do.
When,
But a part of me was mad with God because I was like, you for real? You wanted to take him? I could have
mm.
gave you a list of some others.
Come on, that's real.
You know, and so for me, it was really, that's how I developed the raw, because I'm somebody that's an administrator. I'm an exec, I want to execute. I'm like, let's just get it done. And now I was like, God, so what's the accelerated version to go through grief? I wanted that.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what's the accelerated version, God? Like, who wants to go through all of this? And that's when God was like, yeah, but there's the accelerated version, it doesn't exist. There's some truths about you now that we got to talk about.
Come
And
on.
I looked at Corinthians 4:8-10. We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. And I was just like, wow, it's all of that, God. And he was like, yeah, but the hope in that is that you've turned to me.
Come on.
And you're not mad with me because you know that my thoughts are above your thoughts.
Come on.
And my ways are above your ways.
Come
And
on.
I tell you that I bring you to an expected end. It's like the dash, right? We have the date. I was born in 1971. Today is, I'm in 2024. But that dash the dash between when I was born and even today, but now there'll be another dash, right? So when he comes to take me, but
Mm-hmm.
all of that, he says, I don't define it. It's not written anywhere.
Mm.
It's not written. I don't tell you what's going to happen in between the day you were born and the day you expire, but this was all a part of it. And so now the reality is it's 2024 and you've got to begin again.
Come on.
And so I was like, and he was like, you have resilience to be able to do that. And so where most people were like, you lost your husband, so your grief journey should look like this. And I was like, no, because I wasn't married to my husband 25 years and we didn't have children together. And so they were like, well, it looks like this over here. And I was like, no, we were married for 7 years. We weren't high school sweethearts. And marriage in and of itself was a journey. And so I sat there and I was just like, whoa, God, this is really, so the pill is the truth. And that's a hard pill to swallow.
A hard pill to swallow.
Huge. Because and then there are no resources for me, the widow. And then the first time somebody called me a widow, I was like, what is that?
Talk about, as you're talking, one of the things that I keep hearing, my therapist had, got to put that on real quick. It's this idea of identity. Mm-hmm. And we don't realize how when we take on roles, that becomes our identity. And we live our entire life according to a role. When I ask most people, tell me about yourself, they're going to tell me I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I do this for my job, and naming all the roles that they hold, right? Never once sitting down, no, tell me about you. Don't tell me what you do. Tell me about you. And for most times when you talk about, when the passing of your husband, now this caregiver was gone, and it's like, now who am I? Because I settled into, I'm a caregiver. Yes, I do all these things, but now he's gone. So now you go through this process of what we call identity and role confusion, right? It's like, I don't know who I am, what I'm supposed to do, how I'm supposed to start over, what that looks like, what's next for me, like you said. And then, like you said, then somebody called me a widow. And it's like, oh, wait, that's another identity I have to reconcile within myself, like, wow, like this is me. And I remember going through a tough time in my life where I lost my first child and in such a tragic way through a pregnancy loss, and just struggling with, I never wanted this to be a part of my story. I think that was the hardest part in coming to terms and the healing journey. When you talk about being mad with God, it's like, why does this have to be a part of my story? I didn't want this to be a part of my story. And then when you know that you're serving, it's like, God, I'm serving. I'm trying to do things in life the right way. I'm like, and it's just like, and this is a part of my story. And so you go through all of these different phases. Like you said, grief is not a cookie cutter. Like, I feel like people try to put it in a box. Like, this is how you grieve. You're going to start here, then this is what's going to happen, and it's going to take this amount of time. Like, grief just doesn't work like that. And that's why you have to give yourself the space to grieve, right? Because let's be honest, it wasn't just the loss of your husband that you were grieving. It's the loss of an identity. There's so
Yeah.
many things that comes along with that. And so, like you said, we didn't have children together. We weren't together for 25 years or whatever. So my grief looks different, and what I'm grieving and how that looks and different things like that. And I think that that is so important for people to understand. Your journey is your journey. Even as we talk about self-care, your journey is your journey. People can try to give you words of wisdom. People can try to encourage you. But at the end of the day, you have to sit down with you and figure out who I am. As you said, you have to get real with yourself, and then you have to get up and do something about it. I
Absolutely.
remember when I went through that season of my life. Listen, I was licensed into the ministry already. So I was already a minister. I had already been a therapist. So talk about somebody knowing the tools. I knew all the tools, right? I knew the things to do, but I lost my ever loving mind. Anxiety was at an all-time high. I'm in a corner rocking and shaking and crying, and I couldn't shake it. And I remember I used to call my pastor all the time. And I remember the day she said, "This is the part of life that I can't do for you. I can encourage your heart. I can try to give you the tools. I can even try to give you a little bit of an escape or a break for a second. But when it comes to you changing your life, you have to embrace where you are, and you have to get up and do something. I just can't do that part of life for you." And I think that's where a lot of people get lost. Like, we try to grab onto lifelines, hoping that somebody or something can bring relief. Baby, this between you and God.
And
This
it's good
between
to
you
have
and
a
God.
village. It's really good to have a village. It
Yeah,
really,
it is.
but I've told I have an amazing amazing village. My Bishop John and my Pastor Aisha, like they love on me like to
Mhm.
no end. My friends, my family, like I have an amazing village. But that space and that quietness that happens
Mhm.
when I'm home alone
Come on.
and those triggers pop up. Um, Selfish, being selfish, not being selfish, right?
Right.
The negative connotation, but being selfish, the the liberty to choose you
Come on.
without any negative connotations
Yes.
is is really what I had to kind of walk through, because everybody was so used to calling me to solve, to be the fixer. So for me, when I got quiet, I was like, wow, so what do I do with my time? Well, if you sleep too long, my father used to tell you, being lazy. Man don't work, man don't eat. You got it, so I'm like, okay, so
Mhm.
I said, okay, so me sleeping all the time. But I was like, you know what? I feel good to sleep in the bed. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna sleep.
Come on.
Some days I just slept. And so I think that, I love the title of this being selfish, because no matter what the adversity is, whether it's loss of any kind, whether it's your, losing someone from the physical connotation, or losing someone by a divorce or whatever, or a friendship, whatever it is, I feel like when you're going through the loss, when you're going through the pathway of disconnection,
Mhm.
and you're trying to heal, I think that people are going to find, even when they pick up the book, that it's going to be different strategies and different remedies. You got to pick which is for you, because like grief, it's as unique as your thumbprint.
Yes.
It's as
Yes.
unique as your thumbprint. And I appreciate all the stories of everybody giving me, well, I did this and I did that. And I told somebody the other day, I said, you know what? Grief is really as unique as your thumbprint,
Come
and
on.
there aren't enough resources for it, right? Like, I got a therapist, I got a business coach, I got great pastors, I got great village. And I want you, like, even with all of those all of that, those resources, and me embracing my truth, some days I was like, there's some stuff that we don't talk about, right? That I don't even have somebody for me to talk to about. Hey, so what do I do when I'm feeling lonely? And like, can somebody help a sister out? Because you know what? I'm used to having sex. My husband's not here.
This is real.
Right? Like,
it's real.
You know what I mean? And I was having a conversation with my therapist, and it even made my therapist feel uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like,
It's
she was
real.
like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's what you're going through." I said, "Yeah, can I get somebody to talk to me about that? And how do we put bumpers around me so that I don't fall?"
Come
Right?
on. This is real.
It's you know, it's real talk. Somebody needs to sit down and have that kind of conversation with me. Like, this is how you put bumpers on. How do I communicate now? I go to a church where I want to say 70% of my church, 75% of my church is married. And now I got certain women looking at me like, she talking to my husband. You know what I mean? Like, that's real talk too.
It's
like,
real.
oh, she's a widow, but beat it. She don't want your husband. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, don't be intimidated. So I don't want to walk around. So do I walk around? And so I'm learning that even through the process as a woman or a man of God, I think that you also have to search for the oil that he's producing, because something out of your journey is going to cause you to have to serve.
Come
right?
on.
You got to give back. And so I'm learning that. I'm like, wow, God, I'm good at this. I'm not so good at that. Or maybe I'm okay with this. I was like, but now when it comes down to being a widow,
come on,
I'm learning and I'm curating this whole new set of information and resources to be able to talk to other women who are struggling with loss. And I'm like, you know what? I'm a safe place. So I developed Safe Place Enterprises 20 years ago. Left it on the shelf, never used it for any of my businesses. And so I want to say that even when Jesus died on the cross and when he was going through Gethsemane and he said, God, is this your will? And the Lord says, yep. Because he was like, take this cup from me. Like, this is crushing.
This is heavy.
This is heavy. And God said, nope. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And this is a part of your journey. And he says, okay, nevertheless, thy will be done. I say that that's what all of us we all have to go through this Gethsemane, and it does get heavy. It gets really, really heavy. But I think I'm at that place where I'm like, okay, God, nevertheless, your will be done, because this thing is not without purpose.
It's not without. And I think that's one of the things that, and that's why the hope of the believer, hope of the believer, as a therapist, I say all the time, sometimes I do struggle to work with clients who aren't believers, because this hope that I have, there are some things that I know that if it wasn't for the hope that I had, I would not be able to get through. If it wasn't because I know that God has something on the other side, something greater on the other side. Yes, I lost my first child. Yes, I have me and my husband, it's been 8 years. It's been 8 years, and I think about it, we have not been able to conceive since then. But man, I've leaned into being the best auntie that I can be and loving on these babies. You know what I'm saying? Like, God will produce other things out of it. And there's so many that I've embraced as my own who may not have had the best upbringing, or, their parents can't provide certain things. And man, I'm going to love on them babies until the Lord says otherwise. And guess what? If he doesn't say otherwise, I'm going to still play my role in my position, because I know that it was for a reason and there's purpose in it. God does nothing without purpose. We don't understand. We don't like it. It doesn't mean it's not going to hurt. It doesn't mean any of that, but he doesn't do anything without purpose, and us learning to lean into that. Such powerful conversation. Really quickly, tell people the name of your chapter. And we talked about it a lot. I want you to drop for them, as we begin to close, the biggest nugget that you want them to get out of your chapter.
Well, the name of my chapter is Raw Remedies, Unveiling the Crossing Guard Complex. That's the title of it. And I think the biggest nugget of it is being able to admit that you have a problem.
Come on.
I think it's no different than when an alcoholic comes and says, hi, my name is Marsha Jerman, and I am addicted to being a fixer.
Mm.
I think that's the greatest takeaway, because it's something that we all say, oh, this is just who I am, or this is just what I do. And, when you look at the analogy of Martha and Mary, you know, God was like, hey, but one of them was doing the good thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The needful
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And so I think that, I want people to read the chapter, and I want them to trust the process,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to say, hey, I'm a fixer. I might be a crossing guard to all of these different things going on in other people's lives, right? I've got all these people that rely on me. But I think that admit where you are, acknowledge it, and learn how to become selfish.
Mm-hmm.
The strategy to be able to understand the value of being selfish
Mm-hmm.
it's invaluable, and it doesn't matter where you are in life. It doesn't matter how old you are. Choosing you is something that everyone should figure out how to do, and the pleasure and just all of the fruit that gets birthed. You're no good to anybody if you're not exactly who God wants you to be.
Come on.
So I think that's the greatest thing. I'm able to say, hi, I'm Marsha Jerman, and I am addicted to being the fixer. And now I can honestly say, as much as I've admitted that, I've also embraced a solution, and I'm working that solution, and I'm working the process so I can get to just the full, authentic,
Yeah.
healthy, and whole Marsha
Yeah.
Jerman.
Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. That's so good. As you're listening to today's podcast, I want you to think about what your declaration is. Marsha declared, hi, I'm Marsha Jerman, and I'm addicted to being a fixer. What is your thing? Because when we're able to verbalize that, when we're able to acknowledge it, then you can take the next step in order to evolve, in order to make the changes that are necessary so you can live out your God-given identity and who he has called you to be. Marsha, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, not just for being a part of the anthology, not just for being on the podcast, but thank you for sharing your story so transparently. When I think about an underserved population, being a widow is one of them.
Mm,
Being a widow is one of them. I have to be honest, it is an underserved population. And so to be a voice, to be able to embrace your journey and then to go out and be a voice for other people in that is so powerful. It's so commendable. And the prophetic in me is like going off. There's just so much. There's so much that not just you can do with this, but there's so much that I truly believe that God is calling you to do with this, and
mm,
platforms to mount in order to touch this unacknowledged, not just underserved. Widows are unacknowledged.
mm,
Unacknowledged. It's unacknowledged. And I think for many who have lost a spouse, as you said, they have a hard time embracing, this is what I am, this is what this is. And so, whew, there's so much here. There's so much here. Listen, everybody. Listen, Marsha's story is so powerful. And all I'm going to say is you want to get the book. Even all that we talked about today just scratches the surface of what she was really able to express in her chapter and the tools and just her journey. You need to go out and get this book so that you can learn to embrace your self-care and find your rhythm and figure out how that looks for you. Marsha,
yes.
how can the people get in touch with you? If they want to get a copy of the book, tell us how to find you on socials, email, whatever you got for us.
They can go to my IG, Safe Place Enterprises. On my IG, they can go there. They can go to my Facebook page, which is Marsha Jerman. And I mean, hey, they can go to your page and get the book.
Yes. Yes, yes. Listen, you got Amazon, you got all kinds of options. There's just no excuses now. We're going to make sure that in the show notes, Marsha's information will be there, so you all will have the opportunity and find have a way to find her and get in contact with her. Just follow her. Listen, here's what I'm going to say, because it's in my spirit to say, and I'm going to end like this. Follow her journey now. Get on the ground floor of the greatness of what God is about to develop in this story. That's all I'm going to say, because there's greatness coming out of this. So listen, everybody, thank you so much for being with us for another episode. Make sure you continue to stay tuned. Every story gets more powerful. Every podcast episode just gets more powerful as we meet with these amazing, amazing authors. I really hope that you all got something out of today's podcast that you're able to take with you, and so that you can at least start your journey. We're not expecting you to transform your journey right now, because listen, that takes a lifetime, but you have a way to start your journey. I hope that you all have a wonderful day. Continue to embrace your journey of self-care. And as I always say, stay selfish. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.